7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
All right, welcome back into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast, and I'm starting to notice a strange trend as we return from our hiatus. It seems the first podcast we come back and I get Spike by himself. Podcast number 2, I have Mr. Tony Johnson in the co-host chair by himself. So if the trend continues, the third podcast is going to be terrible with just me and Token Tony.
Yeah, we gotta drag Token out.
Yeah, I think he's still in his drunken stupor at this point because we got I texted to confirm plans and I got back gibberish. So, but anyways, I'm excited because of the times for you to come back from hiatus, college football week. Effectively week 1. This is your soup du jour here, sir, Mr. Tony Johnson.
Yeah, this is. I do get up for this a lot more than the NFL, which is, I know, different than the great majority of people. Not that I don't like the NFL, I really do as well. But yeah, the college season is certainly my jam. If I had a preference, I know that people really get into these like preseason rankings and polls, and we certainly will. We'll touch on that here. But
you definitely know we're going to touch on it. But maybe for different reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the exact point I was going to make, is that it's kind of different reasons than other people like to talk about, and there's so little, like, it's tough to know the good NFL teams sometimes and the division winners, before the season starts. Much less when you have this much transition in the college ranks. It's just so hard to rank teams this early on.
But I would say, and only as a comparison to the NFL, the college football scene is much more chalky.
Things towards the very, very top, yes. But I mean, anywhere outside the top 5, I would say that people aren't really all that sure.
Okay, that's a fair assessment. But yes, I mean, and I'll say this because obviously I'm going to wag my G5 dick all season. It's really hard to get hyped up for football when there's 110 teams in Division I and you've almost pretty much eliminated 95 of them. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. I don't think we should go down this
We're
road.
Not yet.
Early.
I said I'll be wagging my G5 dick enough this upcoming football season. We will talk G5 football a little bit because I consider this kind of the Vegas Squares de facto CFB preview show. Because we do have games starting Saturday with two big, a former rivalry that still has a little animosity, Florida versus Miami, game being played in Orlando, which is not equal distant between the two schools, a little more closer to Florida, but still enough to where the Dade County boys are going to get about half the stadium in their favor. First, let's thank the sponsors. Obviously, we cleared the sponsor list. I don't remember if you listened to the last podcast with Spike.
No.
Our only sponsor now is 12 Ounce Sports Radio. We are just clearing the deck.
Wow.
We are a rebel rogue force here. Unless you want to sponsor us, let me not sugarcoat that. We don't have any right now. We're always looking. And if you're looking to promote a small business or online e-commerce or anything like that, we basically offer free sponsorship. We just like to do this to have fun, and if you want to throw us a couple bucks or maybe a Grubhub gift card, we will not say no. So that being said, again, Tony Johnson on my left here in the Studio A. So I think let's start with Week 0 because it is a quick kind of breakdown. There are exactly 2 games being played Saturday. The first question I have, and we talked about this a little bit off the air, how big of a charge are people ready to have football, real football, regular season football in their life again? I mean, when I say that, I mean, talk about like what the ratings are going to be for this game. I mean, I got to imagine the only game on in the entire country is Miami versus Florida at 7 o'clock Eastern. Saturday.
Yes, I think you're right that it helps being the only game on. The drawback here is that it is a night game on Saturday, and those ratings tend to be a little bit lower than during the regular season in the earlier games.
Sure.
Because people are obviously doing stuff, later on Saturday. But, again, the few people I've talked to, at least just the general sports fans or the bettors, they know, the consensus I'm getting is they know about the game. They know that, Arizona's playing a quote random team, somewhere or whatever. They don't remember necessarily that it's Hawaii. That makes sense. But they know of the game, but there's not a ton of discussion and or talk about it. People aren't really seemingly planning around it, that type of thing. And I'm not saying these are going to be the two best teams at the end of the day when the season's over, but these are, two quality teams here. I don't think there's any question about that. And Florida is certainly, I think, in most people's, whether you want to call them preseason rankings or at least thoughts, they're a top 10 team. I don't think there's much doubt, at least in my opinion, in that regard. So it should be, in theory, a very well-watched game. I'm just not sure everybody's ready, kind of like you said, because we're not fully
That's
all the way there.
That's an interesting take. Because
if I had to guess, I think the ratings would be lower than expected. If I just had to guess,
because I'd imagine, like you said, we seem to be starting the college season earlier and earlier and earlier. Because I remember when I was in college, the season started first week of September.
Right, yeah.
Now we're, theoretically last week of August, but it's like the beginning of the last week of August. We're getting earlier. It's like when I was growing up, school seemed to start earlier and earlier too. Because it was like when I first started like grade school started, my birthday was in the summer vacation. And then all of a sudden, when I'm in high school, my birthday was like the third day of school. And that was that was always like the worst. Because like in March, it was, hey, when's your birthday? No, it was like the third day of school, bro. You forgot.
There you go.
So, all right, well, let's break down week 0, quote unquote, in college football. Again, we've got 2 games. Arizona's playing somebody, also known as Hawaii. And which game, and this is not an easy question I would ask. I think I know the answer, but which game's more intriguing to you this Saturday? We'll start there.
We're just talking from a football perspective, from the betting perspective.
Carte blanche. What do you think?
The most intriguing game that I'm curious about, because I think Florida is a potential SEC title contender. So
winning it or just appearing in it?
Possibly winning it.
Wow.
I think they have an outside chance if things really all the way come together, especially on the offensive side. I think defensively they're going to be unbelievably good. But so that's, I guess, the most intriguing part is that. And then, of course, they're facing another new regime here in Miami with Manny Diaz taking over after Mark Richt stepped down last year, and they were going to be in some very odd transition if Manny didn't come aboard right away, because he had already taken the job at Temple. And there really weren't a lot of candidates out there that made a lot of sense. I know Manny's born and raised, and he's a Miami guy, so it made a lot of sense. But yeah, it was one of those really, really tough things, because it was an unexpected
it's like a
move.
Scramble move.
It really was.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of people are curious to see what Miami's going to look like. Manny's been pretty tight-lipped about how this offense is going to go. I mean, based on the coaches that he's hired, it does appear like things are going to change there, that it's going to be more of a spread, wide-open attack. Looks more like a, kind of a spread run scheme, similar to what we see in Chip Kelly-style offenses. That's what it appears at this point, but I think a lot of people are really curious because, Miami's probably never looked like this on offense, and as his time is as the head coach here, it'll be very, very interesting. So we know what he's done with the defense over the last couple of years, but what can he do as a head coach? And all the things that come into being a head coach, being a CEO almost of a team, and how much you have to do outside of just coaching the game, of course. So that's, I think, the most intriguing game out of the two, just because I think we don't know what's going on with Miami right now, and I think Florida's going to be really good.
So you mentioned the name Mark Richt stepping down. Obviously, he was there, I believe, 4 years. I could be wrong. It might have been 3.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Picking up the pieces from what was left of, I believe, Al Golden, he succeeded. Do you believe that he actually turned the program in a positive direction, negative direction, or just neutral? I don't know really how to assess his tenure at Miami. Not that, it's really that big of a deal. He's already considered a very legendary coach for his work at Florida, his coordinator work at his work at Georgia, and his coordinator work at Florida State during the big run under Bobby Bowden.
Well, they didn't have any massive, deficiencies in personnel. There weren't any, large criminal, activity. There wasn't anything that really bad happened.
They seemed to have one big year until they were rolling and then got slaughtered by Clemson, which, that's not uncommon.
Yeah. And then they lost to Pittsburgh, I think, the week after. And it was,
and they lost their bowl game. And
it did seem to unravel a little bit there. I would say that he certainly righted the ship. Al did not leave the program in a good state, for sure. And you expected that from Mark Richt, after the many years, over a decade in Georgia. He was a guy, he is a great defensive mind, a good coach. They run the ball well, and you knew they were going to stay in a lot of games and be back to, a high level team. Now, rising to the prominence that these Miami fans seem to believe that they think and expect is just, well, it's a ludicrous thought.
It's okay to expect it, but to believe that you're there right now is, you're right, is ludicrous.
It's not going to happen. So, I think it was, he was good for the program. Certainly, anytime you get a guy, he seems to be a very high caliber, individual, Mark Richt. So from everything I've heard and, everything we reread, he seems to be, pretty well up there. So I would think it was a good hire and it was a good thing that he was there.
More of a stopgap.
I would say it seems like a stopgap at this point because obviously they never really, won anything of substance, and they only won 9 games. I think 1 year was their most wins, which I think was unexpected. I think we expected to have a 10 or 11 type of win season, and be close to the playoff or something like that. So.
And I got to imagine Canes fans have to be disappointed that since coming to the ACC, they have not won an ACC title.
Yeah. Oh, that big disappointment. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. This is it's a.
Especially because when I was back in Florida, the philosophy was the Big East was so little to them that they were coming over here to basically say, we're going to come control your conference.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. I think that's the feel I got to it, and I wasn't living in it like you were. So yeah.
And it just it has not happened. Yeah. So, all right, well, let's start there with Florida and Miami. Obviously, the game of the week. It had a 50% chance of winning that. Florida, number 8, you said, you've already made, winning SEC conference prediction or, optimism, which, the SEC is the creme de la conference. We have 7.5 for Florida. Felipe Franks coming back after what seemed like a great end of the season run. Talking about, the defense being what it is. And they've got effectively a neutral site semi-home game here to start off. Again, against a little bit of a rival. They used to be rivals back in the day, then they stopped playing for a long time. But 7.5 for a number 8 team versus an unranked doesn't sound like it's enough. But again, semi-rivalry. This is the first time you're actually hitting somebody else in the mouth. What are your thoughts on this game? Total's 47 currently.
Yeah, it's a tough game to handicap because, like we talked about earlier, we're not really sure what we're going to see from Miami. Again, a totally kind of new program regime here.
The unexpected quarterback wins the job, too, with McWilliams.
That is true. That's a good point as well. So, yeah, so to me, this is a game I'm definitely staying hands off. I know that doesn't really answer a question. I will certainly get more into that. But from a pure betting perspective, it's not the game I'm looking to bet, which
Politician
is why
Tony Johnson's back in the saddle.
I'm back in the saddle, but when you had asked previous which game I was more intrigued or whatever, because the game that would be potentially bet on is the other game. So that's why I asked that question.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, so what we have with Florida, I think, is what was expected maybe a year to 2 down the road that we would get from Dan Mullen, and I don't think this quickly. I think people are a little bit surprised at how quickly he was able to bring things together and implement his really specific offense for a quarterback that he did not recruit, or I think a lot of people didn't think he would actually be the starting quarterback going into the last year either. So, because Franks was, I think, really well written off.
I would agree with that. That's true. It's pretty much fans and boosters were probably pretty done with that guy.
I would guess, yes. And so, and he was the exact opposite of, I think, what the expectation was last year. He didn't put the ball in harm's way. He didn't take nearly as many hits as he had in the previous 2 years. He seemed to learn how to run out of bounds. He even slid a couple of times, which is still relatively rare in college football, but, I know Mullen made a point that he wanted to, keep him upright as much as possible, just because he wasn't a fan of the depth and what there was, there before he had his time to get some of his recruits in. So, and he didn't say that in those exact words, but certainly I think that Franks was a big surprise, and not just playing ball control either, but really making best use out of the plays that were called, and his completion percentage was fantastic. And the 10 to 20 yard down the field, I was looking at it at some of these numbers last year, just previewing some quarterbacks and stuff. And Franks was in the top 20, 25 in some of these figures, these passing figures that you would not expect.
4-to-1 TD to interception ratio.
Yeah, I mean that's fantastic.
Pretty good for even professionals.
I'd say so. Very impressive there. They brought in another really, really good recruiting class this year. So there's going to be a couple of freshmen, I think, starting at the receiver position, from what I understand, for Florida. So that'll be interesting to see how that works. They still have LaMichael Piron, who will be the running back there. He's had a couple of years now under a couple of different coaches, but he's a pretty solid back. And I just think that coupled with their defense, where they have, it looks like, probably 4 to 5 NFL caliber players that are pretty much ready to go right now. Maybe next year they'll be a little bit more in transition on that side of the ball, but this year they're going to be one of, if not the maybe second best defense in the SEC. So it's going to be a tough team to beat.
Yeah, I got to look at, like you said, defenses on both sides are going to be probably the leaders at this point. I see a very dry game in this. I see a lot of working on the offense because you have two great defenses that are going to basically be the stars of the show here. I think and like you said, you didn't officially make a pick, but your action seems to be on the late game. My action, already locked in, is on the dog, because I believe that Miami's defense can keep this close. I believe that their offense is going to be kind of a patchwork work in progress. Part of me thinks that Jaron Williams, the fact that he won the job over Perry and Martell, tells me that there's something special about this kid. A redshirt freshman, you bring a transfer in, especially if one from Ohio State and has the eligibility to play right now. Usually that almost means de facto they're the starter. And to basically label Williams as a starter tells me a lot about Williams, and kind of tells me a lot about Martell as well. Perry, N'Kosi Perry, however you say his name, was kind of the guy who was the odd man out, even though he was the starter sometimes last year. It seemed like what he had on film already was unsurprising or unenthusiastic to Diaz. Diaz had seen him firsthand. So my thought is that while two of the other guys should have been more incumbent, Jaron Williams, the fact that he emerged as a starter, to me, tells me a little bit more about him. Again, he's going to take some lumps, but I think he's got a defense good enough to keep him in, and I think Miami will have a shot to win the game at the end, but I ultimately think 21-17, 21-20 is probably going to be around the score. So I've locked in 7.5, not really loving the under as it comes down, so if I'm going to take the under, I need to get it now.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it has moved from the opening line, which makes a lot of sense. The line opened around 50, it appears here. So yeah, that would definitely track with me, at least my initial thought of the game. And thinking about it, this might be Jaron's toughest defense he
plays all year.
Yeah, maybe all year. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what their schedule is, and I have it up in front of me. But
they have Florida State, and that's always a tough defense.
Yeah,
they're missing.
They miss Clemson this year. I'm pretty sure they do. I looked that up before. Let me see if I can. Oh, here I have the schedule here. Yeah, they don't play Clemson. They have. Yeah, I mean, at Florida State,
Virginia Tech, maybe it could be a tough matchup.
Yeah, there you go.
But you're right; they're probably of the defenses. This is probably the creme de creme.
It is, yeah. And so it's the first game immediately, and he played.
If he can get through that, I mean, you got to think that Miami's going to be a potential horse in the ACC.
Yeah, if they can somehow win this game, that would be incredibly impressive. Not saying that it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think a close game is certainly a fine prediction, but. It's a good line. I mean, to me, it's a good line with a lot of unknowns here. But
I also would like to tell you, because I know this excites you every time I do it. I have put them in my. I need to get a sponsor for this. My William Hill 14-point teaser of the week.
You should.
I should get somebody to sponsor that.
Some sort of degenerate company out there that's just ready for some weird publicity. That's it.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. I should get the producer to work on that one. But I did take Miami all the way up to 21.5. So
21.5.
I feel good about that, especially since I think they realistically have a chance to win this game.
Yeah, see, this is a game that I would definitely not want to put into a 14-point teaser because we don't know what we're going to get with Miami. Like, I wouldn't be the most crazily shocked person if it's 31-3.
Yeah, that's true. That could happen.
Yeah, I don't know. But, yeah, the more likely scenario is that, yes, it's a close game and a defensive battle. I agree with you, but yeah.
Thanks for helping. Thanks for playing to my heartstrings there.
All honesty. How Tony Johnson always is.
Yeah.
Pure honesty.
He never gives you an exact answer. But but he doesn't rip your heart out at the same time. So, all right, well, let's move to your game, effectively.
Yeah. Yes, the Arizona-Hawaii game, which is a late start, very, very late start out east. What is it? This is a 10:30 p.m.
10:30 east start. For us, it's dinner time. So.
For us, it's great. But yeah, this is. I think this. Now we question the ratings potentially what it'll be in the first game. This one, I'm pretty confident the ratings will be
in the
really
dump.
low.
Yeah, in the dump.
Really, really low. Especially just on CBS Sports Network, which I don't think everybody's getting anyway, even in all their cable packages.
True. All right, first question right off the bat.
Yes.
Is 74 high enough of a line for this two teams?
I did handicap this one already, like fully, and 74 again. I hate to be the politician again, but it seems like a very fair line.
Yeah.
I was trying to come up with a score of what made a lot of sense. I
like
the line
45. Is it like a realistic possibility?
I agree. The only one I'm questioning is how much Hawaii is going to be able to score. I'm very, very, very confident in Arizona putting up a lot of points. I'm not as confident in Hawaii, which leads to where I stand here. I haven't made the bet yet, but I'm not sure if I just have the jitters of needing to make a bet because it's college football season or if it actually is a good line. I don't know, but I tried to figure out how much Arizona should be favored in this game, and the number I'm keep coming up with is like 17 to 18 plus points. So the fact that it's at 11 right now is a sign, maybe 10.5 in some places. It seems pretty good. I don't usually like to bet favorites, as you know. One of the things I like about this is that this is Kevin Sumlin's now second season here in Arizona, and every spot he's been, going back to the Houston days in his second year, they really make big, big strides. Mostly offensively. He's an offensive coach, but this is where the team makes a huge, huge step forward. And I don't think it's going to be any different this year. Almost every player is returning on the offensive side of the ball. They're getting 4 offensive linemen back. You're getting a quarterback, both running backs, and a smattering of receivers. Not the leading in receiving yards last year, but a few of the other guys. So I think that, coupled with the fact that I think their defense is going to improve a little bit, it's still going to be middling to subpar in the Pac-12. They may not win a ton of games in the Pac-12, but games like this with a lot of time to prepare, with one of the great offensive minds that there is, to me, Arizona, I think, is going to be ready to go. They've been there now for a while. They got to Hawaii about a week ago. I think that helps a little bit, too, not having a game before this.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I think that they've made this like they took time, I think, in the early part of the week to go visit places and, do Hawaiian things.
I mean, Hawaii's returning 20 starters from last
They are.
It's kind of big.
It is a lot. No, it is.
18 is a healthy projection there. I mean, especially first game of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, at what point you also think at what point if Arizona does get out 3-4 touchdowns, does Kevin Sumlin a foot off the gas guy?
He's not.
Okay.
He's not. Well, at least he hasn't been in his previous places that he's been employed at.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't think he is. I think he believes this team is good enough to win the Pac-12. I'm not sure I would agree with that, but I think he believes that. And as much as we don't want to say, running up the score on a potential team that can win 6-7 games in Hawaii. They also play 13 games versus everybody else plays 12. I think is meaningful. It's a road game that's always sort of difficult for a lot of teams to play in Hawaii. But I think this first game of the season is a great schedule. Whoever scheduled this, a good scheduling game. And I think Arizona is going to be very, very, very difficult to stop. So if I had to pick a final score, I'm in the 40 to 20 range, type of thing. I think this is going to be a very one-sided contest.
All right, fair enough. I mean, so there you have it. I'm going with one game. You're going with the other game, and you got picks. If you're listening to this podcast, you have your first 2 picks of the season. Should we keep track? I feel like we should keep track, but I'm too lazy to keep track. We need a statistician who's willing to work for pizza and beer.
Okay. Well, at
which
least
would have been Token.
It would, yeah, that would be Token.
That would be right up Token's alley. I feel like he'd apply for that.
I'll at least put down the first two, and then we'll go from there.
And then we'll probably forget from there.
That's fine.
So,
okay.
All right. Well, that kind of puts a cap on the preview of Week 0 in college football. But again, like we told you here, Vegas Squares, this is going to be the de facto Vegas Squares college football preview. We're going to kind of talk about a lot of everything else here. So, we talked about mentioning that the polls are out and everybody's view on polls. Some people take polls really serious. Some people think polls are bullshit before week 5. Some people believe polls serve a purpose, but they shouldn't be the be-all, end-all, especially this early in the season. Nevertheless, the polls at this point in time, especially with the votes, AP and coaches, you can see that, you said it was top-heavy, and it's even top-heavy to the top-heavy. It's Clemson and Alabama and everybody else right now, according to AP and coaches.
Yeah, that seems that tracks.
And it's not like it's not well-deserved, because they are fantastic teams. But depending on what side of the pendulum you sit on, that's a very deflating feeling, especially us G5 waggers.
Yeah.
And that's a very confident feeling, especially if you're a Clemson or Alabama homer.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's I think it's correct in the sense of where the first place votes and how top heavy it is, as you said, should be. I think it's going to be tough to unseat Clemson just because of the schedule that they play versus what Alabama is going to have to play. Just, the conference that they're in. Clemson maybe loses one game, probably max, in the regular season.
I don't even see it, but
yeah,
maybe,
I don't see it either.
Maybe Florida State if they play a perfect game and Clemson has some blemishes.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. So I think that it's going to be tough to move one of these two teams out. I think Alabama is a little more susceptible to injury at a few certain spots, but besides
especially
that,
quarterback.
Especially, yeah. And from what I understand, Tua's brother might have worked his way into the backup role, so that's sort of interesting.
I mean, we got 4 more years of having to say Tagovailoa.
Yeah, exactly.
God dang it!
From what I understand, he has, and he's impressed.
Cool.
In their spring camp.
Is he a lefty too?
No, he's a righty.
Oh man, his family can do it all.
Yes, so that's he was actually recruited by Clemson as well and made an official visit there, which is sort of funny in its own right. But yeah, and they had already moved to Alabama, the whole family, so everyone just expected him to go to Alabama, but he took the official visit, which was a little bit of a shocker.
Good for him.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty fun too. I think Dabo had a lot of fun talking about that with the media when he came.
How crazy would that have been? I mean, obviously you have Lawrence, so I think the official reason he didn't go is probably I don't want to sit for 2 years, especially when I'm this good. But God forbid Lawrence wasn't there. Could you imagine?
That would have been great.
Tagovailoa versus what's the kid's first name? Not Tua, is it like
no
Drua?
I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah,
maybe it's Thria. I don't know. Tua and Thria. God,
wow.
Well, they keep drinking, they get better. Trust me.
Sure they do. But no, I mean I agree with you. I think it is top heavy, and for a reason. And Georgia, right there at number 3, is relatively close. I don't think there's that much of a gap. I know a lot of people do think that there's this massive gap. I don't believe there is. Georgia's returning a lot of guys too, and that's a team that just is going to lose 1-2 games absolute max, and they're going to be there right at the end as well. So another high quality team. I think after that, to me, the biggest drop off is actually after the 3, is where every team from there, I think maybe with the exception of maybe Texas, I think has bold question marks at a few different spots. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't see this changing, as you said, anytime soon. Whether it's good or not for the college football landscape is certainly debatable. That's not really something that I think about and or worry about.
So you're high on Texas? I'm trying to read into that.
No, I mean,
you think they're a little more together?
They're together. Yeah, they're put together. So that's actually
that goes against the grain of what a lot of people think.
Yeah, so that was the first bet I made when the futures came out in June. I made that one 15 minutes after they came out.
What bet?
So I have Texas season wins
to win.
Under 9.5 plus 110.
So you think they're together, but you've got under.
I think they're highly, highly, highly overrated by the media. By pretty much everybody. There's just a super bias to what this team
even though a team who was who was effectively almost I wouldn't say shambles, but they were kind of lacking identity and won 10 last year.
Yeah, they were really good last year. They won a lot of close games last year.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they even won the Oklahoma game. I
gotta imagine they got better. You know? Or at least didn't get worse.
No, I mean, he had a good recruiting class.
I'm not high on Texas either, but I'm surprised that you say that Texas is a team that does have their shit together.
They do.
Yet it's going to go under the 9-win total.
Yeah, because they need to lose just 3 games, and the schedule is difficult.
How many games are they going to play? I haven't looked at their schedule. They're only playing 13 games?
12. They play 12 games.
But they got a bowl game.
No, it doesn't count with the bowl games.
Oh, regular season wins?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that may be a fairer point. Okay.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule, and even the second game of the year they play LSU. So I think LSU is going to be better than actually people expect, except for some of these pollsters. When the polls came out,
the polls are LSU 6.
I know, and I was surprised because I thought LSU was going to be better. I was like, yeah, they're going to be somewhere in that 10 to 12 range, and that's not right. But no, they came out about where I thought. So,
I think Joe Burrow, and as crazy as it sounds, I think Joe Burrow really elevated himself in the UCF bowl game. Because they got behind early, he got smacked in the mouth.
Yep.
Calmly righted the ship and turned around and, depending on who you ask, kind of beat UCF a little handily. And it hurts for me to say.
Yes.
It was a 1-score game. They dominated quarters 2 till about, most of the 4th.
Yeah, until the end.
Hey, I get it, man. Look, I'm trying to be a little more unbiased. Mm-hmm. Even though it's my show.
No, you're working at it. That's good. But LSU's going to alter their offense.
Some dick wagging. I don't know why I said that, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah,
at least in my world.
I think LSU's going to be much better than they even were last year. Offense is going to change. They're going to be also much more up tempo and fast paced. They've tailored this offense around Joe Burrow. He brought in a couple of guys from the NFL. One was it Joe Vitt or somebody that worked for the Saints and a few other people. And so this offense is going to look, I think, quite different and take a few people by surprise early on. And unfortunately, Texas gets them right away. So I think that game against LSU is going to be extremely difficult.
Herman as an underdog, though. Careful.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a great point. I was just going to say that because you know how I feel about that. When Texas is a dog, they are nearly unstoppable.
Especially under good old Tommy. What was that? Okay, cool. Hook 'em. You remember that?
I'm not sure they'll be a dog though, because it's a home game. They may not be a dog.
I thought it was in Jerry World. No.
Oh, is it neutral? Okay, I thought it was at home. Okay, well, all right.
I could be wrong. Again, I'm blowing a lot of smoke here. So.
No, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at to be betting individual games, yet. So I'm not exactly sure. And when I bet totals, even season win totals, I know people love to look at the schedule and really harp on it. I don't. I don't get into the schedule all that much because so much can change with teams that you don't really necessarily think about. A week 8 matchup doesn't look all that tough right now, but when that team all of a sudden is surprising, coming in 6-1, like it's a lot more difficult, especially when your starting quarterback and left tackle are out, and it just becomes a tough game. So to me, I try not to get too into the schedule. I try to look and see what is going on.
I think week 2 is early enough to start looking at this.
Agreed.
Take a look at the schedule.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly a worse team than Oklahoma. My guess is they will not win that game again either. So to me, it just seems like those 2 games are by far the most difficult, and then they have 3 or 4 difficult Big 12 games. 3 of those are on the road against really high-quality teams. Iowa State is one of them. I remember they're on the road there, and then they're on the road against, I don't have it in front of me, but it's another really good team.
I think LSU's got a tough schedule, too.
They do.
By the way, insert comment, it is at Royal Stadium in Austin.
Okay.
So it is not a neutral site game.
So they might
my
be
apologies.
favored. No, that's fine. Yeah,
they may be favored, even as the 10 seed, the effective 10 seed. So they got the Longhorns, they got the Gators, however, at home. They got Utah State, a team they should not overlook. Although they should probably beat them.
But not overlook them.
Well, I'll tell you what, though. I will say this.
Gary Anderson's back there. He's good.
With the exception of Bama, all their tough games are at home. Aggies, Auburn, Bulldogs, Gators, and, Texas as well. So 2 tough games. They can get it through Texas like you believe. They just have Bryant Denny to deal with this year. So not terrible. And they missed Georgia. So that's nice.
Oh, that is big. Yeah.
Yeah, they missed Georgia.
Oh, they'll be very good. No question about it.
Interesting. They are a team. I'm curious what they're firing off at as far as winning the college football national title. They've got to be 8-1 to 15-1, somewhere in there. Get the crack research step, take a look at that. But all right, well let's slide on down the AP poll. I think Ohio State's another team. A lot of question marks. You got Justin Fields. You got a effectively new coach. When I say new, he's obviously, coached a little bit last year with the Urban Meyer suspension. But now, I kind of like the way you said it. He's the CEO of this team. So Ryan Day, relatively unknown to the outside world of Columbus. This was a team you were high on last year too.
Very.
Still the same feeling?
No, definitely a little bit different. I was very high for one of the reasons, and I hate to just be the de facto quarterback reason, but I was super high on Haskins. Like that, I was not shocked. I know a lot of the country was, of how good of a passer this guy was. That was not the shocker for me. The shocker was how they kept playing down to opponents throughout the Big Ten season.
Yes, that
was the surprising point. But Haskins himself, very, very good. So now we go back to more of a traditional quarterback that Ohio State has had for a while, a dual threat, run first almost type of player.
Miller, Terrell Pryor kind of guy.
Yes, for sure. And even, JT Barrett
to an extent, yeah.
So I think that that is one of the things I'm a little bit curious about is how this offense, does it revert back to sort of more what we saw over the last 7-8 years or so?
How long's Ryan Day been the coordinator?
I think 2 or 3 years. Not sure.
I would imagine he may stick to this guy. May not be his strengths, but maybe stick to this guy somewhere around the Dwayne Haskins model.
Yeah, I mean, and Fields...
He definitely has the arm.
Oh, yeah. I was surprised he wasn't starting in Georgia. I remember we had talked on previous podcasts that I thought Fields should be starting for this team.
And I still was the Jake Fromm State Farm guy.
Yeah, that's right. So, yes. And now we'll get to see, not that we can say what one of us was right or not. That doesn't really matter. But, I mean, if he can get it done in Ohio State... and be a dominant quarterback.
Of course. But yes, I mean, theoretically, if Ohio State or Georgia were to somehow meet up, that would be a great...
Be interesting, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. That'd be a great barometer.
Mm. They lost some recruits in this last recruiting season. They went from about 4 or 5 overall to in the teens somewhere. They lost a couple of 4-stars late, and then a 5-star that they thought they were going to get did not sign on the offensive line, which again may not matter for this upcoming season, but it might matter a little bit down the road. If Ryan Day is not as good of a recruiter as Urban Meyer, which I think would be very, very, very likely to be true because Urban is one of, if not the best, then we're not going to see as dominant. I think, of teams going forward with Ohio State. So whether that affects it this year, I'm not quite sure because I do think that Fields could be a great equalizer and he could be, really incredible. But again, lost their top 2 receivers to the NFL. Lost Paris Campbell, what do they call him? The Y back there. That's kind of the Swiss Army knife. He can really play anywhere, and it's an important position. The Y in that offense, and they haven't really seemingly been able to replace that. I watched the spring game, and there were different people rotating into that position. So I think losing a guy like Paris Campbell, who was quite good, very underrated, and could be good at the next level too, I think is going to be tough. So again, I don't know. I'm not super confident in Ohio State. Certainly, they're going to win their very high fair share of games, but the Big Ten is tough. Again, the Big Ten is tough. There's a lot of teams on the rise. We'll get to that in a little bit. But, I'm not a firm believer as I have been in the last, especially last year in Ohio State.
Actually, let's get to that right now. I know we've got a agenda, but we can move that around. That's the beauty of being the CEO of this podcast. We'll talk about Nebraska because I think that's where you're going with this. And this is what kind of irks me. Not that I'm not rooting for Scott Frost, obviously, but I feel like as an AP voter, and again, and this is pure speculation, you could be lobbied for your vote at this point. But I mean, you look at, these teams, okay, you have Iowa State 8-5. All right, fine. That's not terrible. Wisconsin 8-5, Michigan State 7-6. Meh. In these top 25 AP polls, Nebraska 4-8. And again, yes, they did come on strong last, but it purely seems to me that based on previous performance of last year, that should have a hand in going. I feel like teams like Missouri, again, Drew Lock is gone, but Virginia, Boise State, Cincinnati, Memphis are teams a little bit more deserving, again, some G5, some P5, of maybe at least even starting in the AP. Again, I'll be the first to admit I think that the poll is stupid, at least through week 5. However, I believe there are teams in the others receiving votes category that are way more deserving to be on this list. Not that Nebraska can't be good and at least even flip their record to go 8-4 this year. I don't agree with the fact that they're placed on this purely based on potential.
Yeah, that's the problem with preseason rankings.
Again, I know, but we're talking about it because that's what you do.
I understand. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. Obviously, it's hard to put a team that won only 4 games last year. Where would you place them? Look at
maybe below the others receiving votes, make it a more Cinderella story that they come all the way up, because they're in a conference that if they do win it and God forbid go undefeated or 1 loss, they're going to be in the playoff discussion.
100%.
Doesn't matter where they start the season. That's kind of why I like that. You have Virginia Tech's another one, South Carolina. God forbid South Carolina somehow shows their face in this SEC championship game. They're how do you base this? I mean, obviously the people who allegedly are voting the AP Top 25 are smarter than me. I don't believe it. But, how do you're basing this on what? Potential recruiting classes, potential of replacement players. I would find if you told me, like Michigan State's 7-6, not a great year. However, they're returning a lot of experience to a team that played well down the stretch. Gave Ohio State a good game. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe won their bowl game or lost it by 1 point to Oregon. And almost, I think they lost by 1.
That was the one that went field goal at the end.
Yeah, and I believe held at the time, NFL ready, according to most scouts, and Justin Herbert held him to one of his worst games. So I can understand Michigan State. I know you like Martinez, but I can't understand Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, Michigan State's also been there, done that.
It's
before.
okay if you agree with me.
No, I mean, I've made my second bet. This was 3 or 4 weeks later. It's amazing you bring this up.
Okay.
Was another under for season wins, and it was Nebraska. Because again, I think it's just we've gone too far.
What's the number?
Here. So I got 8.5, and the under at that one was plus 105, wow. I believe.
Yeah, the media the media's got to love Nebraska again.
Yeah.
So is it the Scott Frost effect? Is it the because I don't know. I'm a non-believer. Yeah, Martinez, but I mean this is a program that fired Bo Pelini after a 9-4 season.
A lot of 9-4s.
Yeah.
3 in a row, yeah.
And, they've been sub 500 since he left. The question is does Nebraska's history in the 80s and 90s, put them in this poll over even Army? I mean, Army is on the outside looking in as far as they're pretty close to 25.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yes. But then if we're so high on Miami, their history should put them in the AP. I mean, it just... How do you pick? I feel like these votes are for sale.
Well, I mean, yes. Again, not to be the dead horse, but I mean, there's a ton of unknown, and we go with what we know.
But the problem is while I think they're largely irrelevant, in my mind, I think they're largely relevant in the outcome of the season. That's my problem. Okay, so say Nebraska and Ohio State have very similar seasons. They both lose 1 game. At this point in time, Ohio State is far mathematically ahead in the driver's seat to play in the college football playoff than Nebraska is, despite maybe having the same season. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's harder to move up, all those spots.
Harder to move up. It's easier to maintain or, only have to move up 1 spot than to have the same season and have to move up 20 spots.
Right.
And again, if you're playing in a P5, having the season like we're discussing will get you in the conversation. But that's the question. I think that's the problem with P5 plus G5, good teams in G5 and only having 4 spots. But that's a whole different argument. Maybe that makes for good ratings for the college football because we can only put 4 in. But we'll have those conversations, I'm sure, right around November.
Oh God. Yeah, and we will. I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Nebraska is going to have a tough time of it. I don't think there's any doubt.
Fair enough.
I'd be surprised if they even have a winning record. It's a tough schedule.
This isn't a hot seat year for Scott Frost, right? Unless they go 3-9 again.
No, I think he's got a long rope here.
Really?
I think he's got
really
long.
I think he's got 2 more years of this, but I don't think he'll do 4-8, 3-9. I don't think he'll do that again.
No.
But if he went 4-8, 4-8, 2 more years, I got to imagine he's gone by the end of that.
3, 4, and 8s. Yeah, I mean, that would probably do it. But, yeah, I would I mean, he'll have I'm
6 and 6,
assuming
maybe?
that he'll get to 6 wins. I mean, there's just enough games early in the season, the cupcake games, where don't get
me wrong. I'm picking on them, but I'm rooting for Scott Frost. So let's switch gears and talk about redheaded stepchild number 1, and that's the Pac-12. I feel like and again, this is tough because you could make a case for all the teams in the top 10, but I feel like Oregon feels like a top 10 team. Washington, they kind of dance around there. Not necessarily ready with Utah yet, but I feel like the people in the poll made the top 10 so quickly and goes, shit, we forgot a Pac-12 team. And then literally clumped them in right outside. 11, 13, and 14.
Yeah.
And then that's it, except for Wazoo, who obviously has to replace Mustache Minshew, but other than that, still has a pretty decent team coming back.
True. And they went with a different quarterback than was expected, too. They had another transfer, this one from Eastern Washington, Gage Gabrud, who was expected to start, and they went with a previous player on the roster, who's been there the last 2 years or whatever as a backup. So, yeah, it's interesting. We'll see. That offense, it all goes how far the quarterback, the quarterback that's one of the most important quarterbacks for a team that there is, at Wazoo. And you'll see with Mike Leach's record throughout his tenure, it really has been how good that position has been, more so than anything else. So, yeah, that's interesting. My take is, I think you're onto something with the fact they couldn't really put a Pac-12 team in the top 10 for whatever the case is, and decided that, okay, we don't want to leave this conference type of thing. People filling out these polls were like, oh well, I guess all these teams are going to be, I guess, fine and good enough, so we'll just sort of put them there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you're kind of right.
None of them are great, so we'll just kind of put all of them right here outside and let them work their way in.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt. In my opinion, I think Utah is the best team out of all of these. I don't think there's not a huge discrepancy, certainly, and it's very hard to bet against Chris Peterson, ever. But I do think Utah has the best team again, returning everyone essentially on offense and getting back a receiver who was injured and missed a lot of the season last year. A guy named Britton Covey, who is, I think, going to be one of the stars on offense in the Pac-12. He's a little guy, really good punt returner, but also runs really clean, really, really good routes. And he missed a bunch of time early on going on his LDS mission, but he apparently played a lot of football while he was doing that somewhere in some country. I don't really remember. So, yeah, it's really interesting. He's an interesting story, but he's also quite a good player, too. And they have one of the best running backs in the entire country, in Zach Moss. I think he'll be near the top, if not 1, 2, or 3 in total yards from scrimmage this year. I think he's fantastic, assuming he stays healthy, of course. So I think offensively, Utah is going to be quite good, and of course, a Whittingham defense is always phenomenal. So to me, Utah is the best team in the Pac-12, and hard to wrap your head around it. It's not a sexy team. It's not a team you ever really get that jacked up for, but it's a team that's going to cause everybody problems. They play no matter what at any time. And the game they play, I think they open against BYU, I believe, which is just fantastic game. So that'll be one of the best games of the year.
Yeah.
It really is. Oh, those Utah games again, those schools, it's very intense up there. So yeah, it'll be great. And I just really like this Utah team a lot.
Yeah, not only that, it seems like it's shaping up, again, based on the poll construction here, that of the 4-team playoff, the Power 5 of the Pac-12 is going to be the one left out again.
Yeah, we'll see how all the records shake out and everything.
But you also have Notre Dame to factor in this mix, too.
Of course, and they should be very solid as well. So, yeah, I totally agree. I think the Pac-12 looks like they're going to be left out. Barring a big run from one of these teams. And it may not be one of those 3 teams. Maybe USC will get, their shit together finally and go on a big run. You never really know. It's hard to say, but I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. I think that, yeah, barring anything spectacular, they're going to be on the outside looking in, and, based on how these polls are looking early on and the way people feel about these teams, I don't really disagree. To me, Oregon being the highest ranked team in the Pac-12 is pretty laughable. If they're not
really,
third
even
or fourth,
with Herbert.
Yeah. I think they'll be probably the third or fourth best team by the end of the year. We'll start our bold predictions or whatever. I think by whatever poll you want to use, they'll be the third or fourth team in the Pac-12. Well, they'll be probably.
That's not really a poll. That's just a standings thing.
Okay, standings thing. They'll be
fourth in the Pac-12 or worse.
Yeah, I don't know which. How the conferences break down, on two sides. But yeah, they'll be somewhere in the
middle of the North.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a fair and honest and bold assessment. Fair
Pretty
enough.
Bold. Yeah.
All right. So, redheaded stepchild number 2.
Ooh.
The group of 5.
Oh.
Now, look, I feel like I'm an entitled member of the club here because we're sitting at 17, and it only took us fucking having to go 25-1 over the last 2 seasons to get that. But I've said this before with regards to Nebraska and Michigan State. Not that I don't, and maybe that's just a bias. I like what Michigan State's doing and what they're returning.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel that there should be some love for Army, Cincinnati, Fresno, Utah State, Memphis, and maybe Boise and maybe Appalachian State.
Wow, you just reeled off a lot of teams there. Wow, that was fun.
Pick 2, pick 3. Again, I would probably say teams like Army and Cincinnati should have found their way into this poll. And again, we will preface this by saying we find the polls largely irrelevant. However, they do exist and they actually do serve meaning. So let's just blanket that so we don't have to keep saying it.
Wow.
But I do believe Army and Cincinnati, maybe Houston, especially Houston if they can knock off Oklahoma to fucking start the season. I don't think they will, but De'Aaron King's back and they've beaten Giants before.
Yeah, they have 2 really good receivers too. Marcus Stevenson will be maybe a top 2, round pick, I think, coming into next year.
Okay.
He's really dominant. Wow. Yeah, you just said a lot of really good things.
So break it down to 3 teams.
Sorry, yes, I got really excited there. Okay.
Army, Cincinnati, and Houston.
I think first of all, Army's not going to go away. I'm not saying they're going to all of a sudden go back to, where they were 10 years ago and win 3 or 4 games. No.
Right.
So I do think Army will be another very solid, strong team. However, I don't think that they're going to be able to replicate what they've been able to do the last couple of seasons. More so for the fact that, not because of the graduation things, I don't care about that. It's the fact that they've won so many close games over the last 2 years. And I know the offense and the way the team is designed. It is designed to do that. I get that. But there are still kicks that have to go through, kicks that have to be missed on the other side. There's a lot of things that have to happen for you to win a lot of close games. And there's something like winning 80% of the of games within 3 points the last 2 years, and it's just very hard for that to continue on. So I do think that Army will again have some sort of regression to the mean in that sense, and so again, winning 7 or 8 games is a fantastic season. I'm nothing against it.
Maybe even just to be able to start in the AP. That's an accomplishment for a program.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah, I just don't see them on the same level as some of the other teams. You mentioned a lot of really good teams that are not ranked. Like Cincinnati, to me, is an absolute dark horse to be the best group of 5 team that there is. I think they could be literally the best.
Let's not get ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not. They have a very good team, top to bottom, both sides of the ball. Luke Fickell has that program in, absolute peak condition. They recruited really well this year. They had a top 25 recruiting class overall. It was unbelievable.
And again, I think this shows P5 bias, or ball washing, as I like to say.
Yes.
That a 4-8 Nebraska team is
Yes.
number 24.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati's not.
For sure.
I'd like the listener to know.
Oh, okay.
I know you
right.
know. We're
Yeah,
effectively
right.
bouncing off each other, but
you're
people do, I think, listen to this show.
Okay.
At least the boss at 12 ounce skims over it. So we get that one half a listener. I don't know if you were on the show yet. We had that one guy listening from an Atlantic City sports book, live tweeting us as it went up, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, every once in a while, someone stumbles upon the Vegas Squares.
Green Valley Ranch. There's a few casual listeners over there.
Is that so?
Yeah, that's where I watch college football games usually each week. So
good shit.
There are a couple of casual listeners there.
I'll have to get you
games.
I'll have to get you some cards. Hey, bumper stickers too.
Yes, bumper stickers.
Bumper stickers. Send them with some bumper stickers.
And maybe one of them is a small business and we can get a sponsor. But,
fucking A.
So
sorry, small business. If you don't like cussing, I'll tone it down.
Yeah, right.
If you're paying.
So definitely,
I can't tone it down.
Definitely, no, you can't. Definitely Cincinnati for sure. I still like Fresno State. I still think Fresno's going to be a good team. I don't think they're near the top in the same realm as some of these other Group of 5 teams. But they're not going to go away despite losing all their great offensive players. Utah State is still going to be solid. Again, losing their head coach, they're still returning everybody else, and they lose their head coach, yes, but they get back a guy, Gary Anderson, who was there about a decade ago and brought Utah State from, again, almost nothingness to being a really, really strong team for
Where'd he go?
3 or 4 years. Then he went to Wisconsin.
Gary Anderson. Got it. I didn't
Wisconsin,
put 2 and 2 together.
Then Oregon State.
I was still thinking about the Vikings kicker.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Who fishes in, Canada or something.
Oh, yeah. No, not that.
Not that guy?
Not
okay.
that guy.
All right.
But he's back.
Wrap my head around the fact that I was wrong.
And, yeah, he's comfortable.
Happens once.
Yeah, well, okay. There you go. And not to bring religion or anything into this thing, but he is a strong LDS faith guy, and I think coming back to a spot where he's super comfortable, his family is happy. I think he's going to be a lot better a coach than he has been at his last 2 stops. So, to me, being really happy and recruiting in the spot that you want to be in is probably going to be a big deal. So I don't see a drop off at all from Utah State.
Fair.
I think they'll be fantastic. So I agree with you there. You mentioned Memphis. Memphis is always going to be good as long as Mike Norvell is there and that offense is as potent as it is. They're always going to have a good team. Appalachian State, again, we'll see another coaching transition.
Stop you there for 1 second.
Yes.
Do you think if Cincinnati can get that home win over UCLA, is that a big enough team?
No.
Okay,
it's not.
Fair enough. All right, continue.
It's not, and they're not going to get they could beat UCLA. See, the problem is if they beat UCLA they beat them by double digits last year. If they do it again, I don't think it's not going to move the needle at all.
Because the expectation's still not there for UCLA. Right?
Exactly. But we know that UCLA is going to have a better team than last year. They're a well-coached team. It's a very good win. So yeah, I mean, to me, Cincy will probably, they're going to be like 9-1 at one point and be ranked lower, and you're going to be pissed off. And I'm going to agree with you.
I won't fight the good fight for Cincy as much as I fight the good fight.
Okay, fair enough.
But I will fight the good fight. I believe in equity. Equality.
Yeah.
Sorry, not equity. I like equity too, but.
So, yeah, to me, Cincy is that type of team that has nobody, and not really on anybody's radar, should be, and going to be great. So, no, you mentioned all of these teams.
Plus, they got UCF, so they're going to play a top 25 team right there.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a decent schedule.
And I believe that game is in Cincinnati. So, there you go.
That'll be interesting.
There you go.
Wow. So that's it. North Texas, don't sleep on North Texas either.
Okay, fair. I already slept on him.
Yep. Seth Luttrell did not leave. He stayed there. So again, returning literally everybody there on offense. Mason Fine, if he throws less than 35, 40 touchdowns, I'll be surprised. That's a team that they're going to run up 40 to 45 a game on almost everybody. And you just don't lose a lot of games if you do that. So that's a team that's just going to absolutely smash folks this year, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch. They're going to be great. So yeah, I mean, a lot of really good teams in this realm. I could not agree more with you. I know we're talking to the listener. I get that, but
talking to the listener,
I'm with you.
The listener agrees.
The listener,
because I told him to.
That's good.
So
yeah.
All right, well that's.
We didn't even talk about Boise either. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah,
either.
I've been reading a lot about Boise. They're going to be Mountain West competitive, probably going to win that, or Utah State, or that's going to be the matchup. I believe more in Utah State, but I did put Boise State there, just because actually the reason I left them out, and I'll be completely transparent and honest, their Twitter family or followers have been a little bit shitty to UCF when I feel like they should be building each other up. So I'll just make that known.
Those are two very different fan bases.
in terms of
the type of person, that's just a very different part of the country.
I feel like they're bitter because they, not in the exact way, but they basically employed UCF's strategy, or UCF employed Boise's strategy. Boise did that 10 years ago. I mean, we knew about Boise. They were the funny team with orange shit on the blue field. And you know about them now because of these reasons. And it feels to me like, I feel like UCF almost adopted a similar model of trying to establish relevance. And Boise State fans are bitter because their model, while got them recognition, didn't really get them anywhere except the Mountain West. They're still not taken as seriously as they want to be. And I feel like fans might be a little bitter on that. So they see UCF, and I'm not going to lie, this was pretty cool the other day. On national television, ESPN, was it an all UCF college football preview commercial.
Really?
That was really huge at least in the UCF fan base. Twitter went bananas on it, and it's a good thing. I mean, and the thing I laughed about because there was a commenter, Barrett Sally, I'm sure you're familiar with him. He said that Danny White was ruining the brand by not accepting 2-for-1s, with Florida, Bama, etc. And to see that commercial on, all I kept thinking was, "You're ruining the brand," like mockingly. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the brand's right there on ESPN. What other G5 is getting their own goddamn commercial? I mean, that's cool.
I agree.
So, anyways, we'll shut the book on that because I'm sure we'll have many, many more conversations regarding the little guys.
Can't wait.
Yeah, you can't wait. Speaking of guys, because that's who plays college football, faces in new places. We talked about Justin Fields, so we'll kind of skip over him because we touched on him with Ohio State. Jalen Hurts in Oklahoma has a chance to do, obviously, something unprecedented. 3 straight Heisman winners, although I don't believe he's a real Heisman contender. Many do. Which let's start with him. We'll get to Kelly Bryant later. When did Jalen Hurts become the second coming of Joe Theismann? Or not Joe Theismann, Joe Namath.
I think the Georgia game helped him a lot last year, I think. I think that was a big one.
Okay, coming in relief to win the SEC?
Yeah.
Okay, fair. But, I mean, you couldn't keep your job in Tuscaloosa, and all of a sudden now we feel like this team who doesn't play defense is going to be able to bail out your mistakes?
Well, he lost his job to one of the best quarterbacks.
Sure, I can understand that, but there was he made a lot of mistakes at Alabama that was covered up by great running and great defense.
Sure.
I'm not sure Oklahoma has, we know about Big 12 defense, or the lack of it. So he's going to have to be a guy who may have to win 45, 43 games and, shit like that. I don't see it, at least. I mean, he has had 7 months of me not seeing his shit, but I'm not on board. I'm not on board with the Heisman candidacy for sure.
Well, that's going to be tough. I mean, Heisman stuff, that's a totally different discussion.
Okay. I mean, I think he can win games.
Yeah. Oh, he'll win a lot of games. Yeah, there's no question there. It's just the setup.
I think that's one of the reasons people are high on Texas, because they're not high on Jalen Hurts. And Texas in that game is what I mean, the Red River, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I think Texas is a better quarterback than Oklahoma does. I think Sam Ehlinger's a better quarterback.
Agreed, but I also think Kyler Murray was a better quarterback than Sam Ehlinger, and they still beat them. So
True. Yeah, well, yeah, Kyler Murray was incredible. I mean, it's unbelievable how good he was.
He'll be terrible in the NFL, just by the way. That's my bold prediction.
That may be, but again,
that's not even really that bold.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's fine. So, so getting back to the task at hand, I mean, the fit is a little bit rough in the sense that I assume that Lincoln Riley is going to adjust the play calling and the regime a little bit to fit Hurts, because Hurts has been one of the big knocks on him was that he's pretty inaccurate down the field and he doesn't have a great arm anyway. So not only does you couple a mediocre arm with an inaccurate ball
with a spread offense.
Yeah, you have to adjust and you have to alter, and that was one of the main reasons why I think he lost the job to Tua. For there's multiple reasons, but that was a big one.
Tua's a beast. But my point is that the guy was winning in spite of him. Alabama was winning in spite of him.
Well, now he gets to face much weaker defenses, and he's in a much better spot offensively with
almost a false sense of looking good.
Oh, I don't think there's any question. I think any quarterback that shows up at Oklahoma right now with what's going on before Lincoln Riley departs for wherever the hell he goes, probably, my guess would be the Cowboys.
He might be the next Bob Stoops.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. Jason Garrett is never leaving the Cowboys. Don't get that twisted.
He's going
to clap his way into a 7-year extension.
I don't agree, but I mean, I don't care. I don't give a shit about Dallas, but I would be surprised if he makes it out of this year. But yes, so I do believe that it's
we'll have to put a pin in that one.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that on an NFL podcast.
That'll be interesting, but not a great fit. But I think that Riley is such a good offensive mind, and obviously he's been so incredible the last 2-3 years with being able to get the most out of these quarterbacks. That my guess is that he will look good. He will be flashy at times, but mostly that'll be running the ball. That'll be these short, quick plays where a receiver takes the ball, 30, 40 yards. His numbers will be gaudy, but we won't see a lot of greatness from him.
It'd be nice to have Hollywood Brown back, but he gone.
Yeah. That's true. So, Yes, I agree with you that he is overhyped and the fit is not the best per se, but I still think he's going to be very, very good just because the situation that he's in is pretty top notch, and there's nobody behind him. Austin Kendall transferred, so this is it. It's all or
eggs
nothing
in one basket.
Yeah, it really is. So we'll see.
All right, what about Kelly Bryant? Because he takes over a Missouri team that is returning a lot of starters, and basically, if he can be Drew Lock or better, I think this is a dangerous team in the SEC. And he's obviously got a chip on his shoulder, especially might even have a second chip after the whole Dabo championship ring controversy. Yeah. Did you hear about that one?
I did. Yeah. I mean, I'm on. Not that it matters what side I'm on. I'm way on Dabo's side here.
I am too.
Yeah, that's just
not that our opinion matters.
Wow. I mean, he just bails on his team like that because he loses his starting job. I mean, that's pretty rough. But whatever. So, Kelly, again, the fit. This is a way better fit than Jalen Hurts. So I'm a huge fan of this in that regard. The issue to me is that I think that Missouri gets worse on both sides of the ball with the players around him. So they lose their best running back, their best receiver, and I think they have a couple of new linemen as well in the important spots. So that added on to the fact they lost 3 guys to the draft, I think, on defense, which is pretty rare for Missouri. And I'm not a big fan of the head coach in general. I mean, I think Odom has brought in a lot of really good offensive guys, and that's really smart. Him being more of a defensive coach. To me, he's not a guy that wins a lot of games late or makes a lot of really good decisions. He's not a great on-field coach, and it's just against the elite in the SEC, it's gonna eventually come back and bite you. And to me, they're going to lose, in my opinion, probably a lot more games than expected. So while Kelly Bryant might have some very good numbers and they're going to be behind in a bunch of games, my guess is he will be fantastic in that regard.
Okay.
The team, Missouri itself, I don't think is going to be all that good. So that's my own. And I think it looks like from the rankings, they're not even close to being ranked wise.
Effectively, they would be 26.
Oh, they would. Okay.
In the AP poll.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
They are receiving 117 votes, which is just shy of Stanford's 141.
Oh, interesting.
So good enough for 26th.
26th ranked team. Okay. Well, I don't know.
It's still not great, I understand. But, I mean, it's an SEC, so they may be an SEC school with Kelly Bryant, so they may be receiving inflated numbers based on that. So, again, we've talked about that with Nebraska and teams of the such.
Yep. So that's my feeling. I think his numbers will be fantastic, but team-wise, they're not going to get any better.
Okay, fair enough. I think we're on opposite ends of that. I would defer towards your knowledge if that one listener is looking for a angle. All right, so that's going to kind of wrap up our preview here. However, I do want to discuss, I guess, the true week one. There's a couple games. There's actually a large slate of games on Thursday, the 29th. Obviously, UCF kicks off that night. Clemson kicks off that night. Cincinnati kicks off, Texas A&M, and of course that game you were talking about earlier, Utah at BYU. The Latter-day Saints battle.
Yeah.
Speaking of Latter-day Saints, I actually went with the producer. We saw the Book of Mormon. Have you seen that?
I have not seen it. I've heard it's great.
It was. And the thing is, you obviously don't have to know a lot about the LDS religion to really enjoy it, but it almost pokes fun of it and promotes it at the same time.
Nice.
It's a weird kind of mind fuck. Not to cuss while I'm saying Latter-day Saints, but so let's look at a couple of those because there's a couple of them right off the bat, and I will say this: as much as I'm the UCF homer, I would not lay 45.5 points with a brand new quarterback, whoever that ends up being, either Wimbush or Gabriel. Because if it's Wimbush, you're talking about a new quarterback transfer coming in, still learning the playbook. Or you're talking about Dylan Gabriel, who was literally making his first start. I don't care if it's against FAMU. I can't lay 45 points. 45.5 points.
Seems like a lot of points.
It does. Even at home, even versus an FCS opponent. I feel like UCF will score 45.5. Well, not 45.5, but I feel like they'll score somewhere around 42 to 48. I feel like they're in the giving up 14 range. Maybe 10, which is still good enough for a cover for the FAMU.
Yeah, I mean, not knowing anything about Florida A&M, but looking at some of
Got a good band.
Oh, they do?
Which won't be traveling to the game.
Oh, all right. Well, interesting.
There's a lot of people on the UCF message boards that are very disappointed that FAMU's band is not traveling to the game.
Really? So that's like a thing?
Well, they're like, that's all I really wanted to see. I mean, nobody really gets up for FCS opponents.
I wouldn't think so. Especially this one, which was not very good last year. So that's my guess is why this number is so high, because I assume that Florida A&M is very poor for FCS levels. So if you're poor in the FCS, obviously you're going to struggle against a team that's not poor at the FBS side.
Yeah.
You know, I have a general. This is just a working theory. It has nothing to. I certainly still evaluate every game. I prefer to lay large chalk. I never want to do it, but prefer to do it in week 1 in the college football season versus in week 2 in the season if you're playing, cupcakery type of teams.
Okay.
And the reason is just because of the lead up to the game and how much preparation you've made for one opponent. Most coaches are going to have a couple of weeks at least that they're going to put in a game plan against whoever it is. I know you don't have a lot of information currently with the roster you're going to be facing, but certainly you have a pretty good idea, especially if it's the same coaching staff there. So, and you're always going to be, getting up, I think, for that first game more so than anything else. It is the opening game of the season. So I tend to do that, and then take points in the second game. Again, not saying that this is a game that I'm believing in here, but yeah, it's just,
this is a game I put in my 14-point teaser and take FAMU plus 60.
Wow. Yeah, that'd be fun. I don't know. Yeah, I have no inkling at all on this.
How do you feel about that? You got FAMU plus 60, but you're a UCF fan. You're like, kill them, but not too bad.
Then we should. Why don't you just make it like UCF minus 30 or something?
31, 31 and a half.
And you can just kick back and on that early 20.
Because then when UCF gets the win by 30, I'm pissed.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
That is tough. Yeah.
All right, fine. You convinced me. Lay off. I'm still thinking about FAMU 45, though.
Okay.
Another one of those huge spread. Buffalo minus 45 and a half. Where's Robert Moore? I mean, Tyree's gone. I don't know what they've replaced him with. You would be the guy to know that.
Nobody of note.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So, I mean, I got to think that 45 is a lot to lay, even against, another FCS opponent.
Yes. Robert Morris, not knowing anything about this team, certainly. It does seem like a ton of points.
It doesn't. To me, Buffalo might not even be a team that can score 45 points.
I don't know. Against a really soft opponent, it's if they run the ball for like 300 yards, they have a couple of good running backs, but I don't know. I tend to err on the side that the odds makers have a pretty damn good idea of handicapping these teams that I don't know anything about, like Robert Morris. So I'm guessing they have a good idea that this team is bringing 0 to the table potentially. So I don't know. My first instinct is just like yours. That is a ton of points for not a prolific, world-beating offense.
Right.
So yes, agreed there. But knowing nothing else besides that, I don't know what else to say.
Buffalo 42-3. Robert Morris gets the cover.
Yeah. That ticket cashes. Absolutely, 42-3. Yeah, it cashes and you feel good. Mm-hmm.
Another one: Texas A&M versus Texas State. Texas State, a team that has had some decent years.
Yes, that's a team that I have a little bit of an idea about. Yes,
so we're talking almost 5 touchdowns here.
Yeah, I think that this is
Kellen Mond is the cat's meow.
More so on the high of Texas A&M. Yeah, I believe that's the reason for this line. I think that's it. I think you nailed it.
I think that's the one I would probably lay 5 touchdowns.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, no, I don't.
Or excuse me, take 5 touchdowns.
Oh, you're on the other side.
Yeah, Texas State. And again, another one. I feel like Jimbo is going to try to say, let's get up 4 touchdowns, take the foot off the gas, or let's get up 6 touchdowns, take the foot off the gas, you get a backdoor in this spot.
Yep. That would be that would make sense. I'm with you again. Yeah, again, a little more work needs to be done on Texas State here, but they have had some very competitive teams the last couple of seasons. So yeah, that would, and of course being an FBS team and being more in the recruiting realm, I think of some of these other teams, that makes some sense. So yeah, for sure.
Then you got Clemson obviously opening up. Everybody's dying to see Trevor Lawrence. So they got 36 at home against Wake.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is almost you have to go, what goes through Dabo's mind? Obviously you don't want to get your quarterback hurt. So how high do you get here? And Wake's obviously, a conference opponent. So having to start with a conference win is obviously big. This is a weird one. 36 points is a weird one. They can easily beat this team by 60. But do they want to win by 60?
True.
But do they want to win a conference game no matter what? But do they want to save Trevor Lawrence? And like you said, they've got 5 deep at every position.
Well, to me, the interesting thing is not on the Clemson side here. It's actually the Georgia Tech side. So this is the first year.
What did I say? I said Wake Forest. My bad. Georgia Tech.
Yeah, it's the first year without Paul Johnson. And so
they're not running the triple option.
They will not be running the triple option under Jeff Collins, who comes over from Temple.
Which means you almost have to create a whole new recruiting profile.
Yeah, which is interesting because Clemson has been so good against triple option teams, namely Georgia Tech, throughout Dabo's time, and with I can't remember the defensive coordinator's name right now, but he's still there as well at Clemson. So, yeah, I mean it's one of those interesting things is that I wish there was still that triple option sort of stuff, and we kind of knew what we were getting, especially with having an off season prepare for it again, which makes it a lot easier.
Sure.
I think this is a really interesting thing. This is one of those games that I'm going to be hands offish because we know what Collins did at Temple, which was run a very pro style like double back setup for a lot of it, but it certainly wasn't an option offense, but he utilized the strengths of his offensive line more than anything else, and that's what he was as a player, and that's what he recruited the most at Temple. So while that may continue at Georgia Tech, we don't know what the offense is going to look like exactly. He only brought a couple of his coaches from Temple. He plucked some people from all over the nation. So again, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. To me, this is a stay away from game, just because I'm not really exactly sure what we're getting, and as you said, how much are we going to see of Trevor Lawrence? It doesn't really matter what backs we see, even if Etienne only plays a couple of quarters. There's 2 or 3 other guys. Lynn J. Dixon would be probably a starter on like every other team besides 2, and he's maybe the second or third back on this team. So it's not going to matter who runs the ball. It just matters how long they play and what we see from Georgia Tech. So that's why I'm staying away from this one.
All right, last one of note is, like you talked, the LDS matchup. Utah given 5 on the road at BYU.
It's my favorite game of the week, I think.
I had a feeling. That's why I saved it for last.
Yeah, you did. You did a good job with that one. I'm really high on Utah this year. I have been decently high on them the last 2-3 seasons. As Whittingham altered his offense and made it more 2019-ish, I think that it was something that needed to be done. I think we're going to see it with LSU this year, that these old pro style just try to hang on to the ball and run it down your throat is not going to get it done when you're facing offenses that can actually score. Your defense might be good, but the offensive players are so prolific that you can't do it. We've seen it with Alabama. That's why Alabama has transitioned to this type of quarterback and this type of offense. You just have to do more. So that's why I like Utah so much. They have a ton of athletic players on both sides of the ball, but again, especially offensively, which is so weird for a Whittingham team. But BYU is interesting. They are on the cusp to me of trying to get back to the time of Bronco Mendenhall when he was able to win consistently 8 or 9 games without really breaking much of a sweat. But the problem is that Kalani Sitake has not been able to recruit the same guys that Mendenhall has. The offense has remained about the same, but the problem is that he's not getting these same high quality guys. Mendenhall was getting guys from outside of Utah, from places in Washington. He had a couple of LA guys that were 4-year starters. Monte Teo was another good example of a Californian that he was able to recruit, and Sitake's not getting these type of players. So to me, he's not going to get to that next level and beat teams like Utah, and as you said, Utah State, really strong team as well, who I'm sure they're playing later as the season goes on. He's 15-20 for a reason, and I think this is where the gap is here. That Utah is kind of going really hard in one direction, and BYU is sort of maintaining their stance as a good team, but not great. And this one can get really ugly here. I know it's a rivalry game, and they tend to be close. I think one team is just significantly better than the other. They got a really good up-and-coming quarterback, Zach Wilson, who's a little undersized, but he's a perfect fit for that type of offense. And he could be an equalizer. I don't know. We saw him only at the tail end of last year, 3 or 4 games, and he played well against Boise State on the road. But to me, Utah is the team here, and I hate betting favorites, but this one looks really, really good.
There you go. You already got a pick for next week, too.
Nice.
So, all right, well, let's put a bow on this one, wrapping up kind of week 0. And we got college football underway, and depending on when you're listening to this, within 24 to 48 hours, and that's exciting news.
It is. It's good. Yeah, there's both games will be good in their own right, but certainly Florida, Miami, as for the junkies out there that are ready for college football, that's a great way to start.
Yeah, my 14-point teaser.
Yes, your teaser is ready to go. Whoop. Yeah, if that's not the right first text I'm supposed to get from you for a bet for the
did I wake you up with that one too?
It was the first thing I saw. Yes, yeah. And I was like, yeah, the first bet Aaron's going to show me is a 14-point teaser for football season. So good for him.
I got 3 words for you, sir.
That felt right.
You are welcome.
Yes, that did feel good. Wow.
All right, so that has been, like I said, de facto Vegas Squares college football preview. Obviously, the great Tony Johnson giving you many, many doses of knowledge here. So let's wrap it up. Thank the sponsors, 12-Ounce Sports Radio, and that is it. So for Mr. Tony Johnson, I am Aaron. We want to also thank Tony, Token Tony, for getting out of bed today, or not. And obviously, you'll have these weekend because we're going to be having picks, college football picks every week, and then we're also going to be having NFL podcast picks because we've got a nice little bet. We've kind of trimmed the fat on our retarded NFL bet from last year. I think we got good stuff now. So again, for Tony Johnson, and for the ghost of Token Tony, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening. We will catch you on the next one.